Now, when the great Ted Williams became manager of the Washington Senators in the late 1960s, he was almost a miracle worker, manager of the year, candidate from the first day, helped the expansion team to a great finish. But by the time the 71 season was coming around, the writing was on the wall. Owner Bob Short basically was making ultimatums that he was going to move the team or sell the team. So the 71 campaign was sort of like a dead duck season, sort of like Montreal's last year with the Expos before they moved to Washington. So figure that out. This was the Senators' 11th last season in Washington, D.C. They moved to Arlington, Texas, became the Texas Rangers 72. The previous Senators, now Minnesota Twins, were in Washington from 1901 to 1960. And again, that 69 campaign was Williams' first as manager of the side. The move to Texas left Washington with a Major League Baseball franchise for 33 years until the Expos relocated there in 2005 and became the current Washington Nationals. Now, in the offseason, Ed Brinkman, Aurelio Rodriguez, Joe Coleman, and Jim Hannon were traded by the Senators to the Tigers for Denny McLean, Elliot Maddox, Norm McRae, and Don Wirt. On November 3rd, Greg Goosen and Gene Martin were traded by the Senators and the Phillies for Kurt Flood, a player to be named later. The Phillies completed the deal by sending Jeff Turpco to the Senators on April 10, 71. On November 30th, Joey Foy was drafted by the Senators from the Mets in the Rule 5 draft. And on March 29, 71, Ed Stroud was traded by the Senators to the White Sox for Timon McCraw. Now, the acquisition of former Cy Young Award winner Denny McLean did not pay dividends for the franchise. Amid constant run-ins with no-nonsense Washington manager Ted Williams, McLean lost 22 games in 71. This was coming off a 31 season. In 68, he dropped fast. Now, by the end of the 70 campaign, Short had issued an ultimatum. Unless someone was willing to buy the Senators for $12 million, he would not renew his lease at ARFK Stadium and move elsewhere. Several parties have offered to buy the team, but all fell short of Short's asking price. He fell short with Short. Short was especially receptive of an offer from Arlington Mayor Tom Vandergriff, who had been trying to get a major league team to play in the Metroplex for over a decade. Years earlier, Charlie Finley, the owner of the Kansas City Athletics, sought to move his team to Dallas, but the idea was rebuffed by the other AL team owners. Now, Arlington's hole card, no pun intended, was Turnpike Stadium, a 10,000-seat park which opened in 65 to house the AA Dallas-Fort Worth Spurs of the Texas League. Built to Major League specifications, it was located in a natural bowl, the hole card, and only minor excavations were necessary to expand the park to Major League size. Now, after Vandergriff offered a multi-million-dollar upfront payment, Short finally decided to pull up stakes and move. On September 20, 71, he got his wish, receiving approval from male owners to move the franchise to Arlington for the 72 season. Now, Washington fans were outraged, leaving public relations director Ted Rogers, not the Ted Rogers, with the unenviable task of putting a positive spin on such events as fans unhurling a giant banner that contained Short's name, preceded by a popular four-letter invective. A photo of the banner appeared on the front page of a D.C. newspaper the following day. Now, fan hatred came to a head in the team's last game in Washington. On September 30th, thousands of fans simply walked in without paying because the security guards left early in the contests, swelling the paid attendance of 14,460 to around 25,000. The Senators let 7-5 with 2 outs in the top of the ninth. Just then, fans poured onto the field, thinking the final out had already been made. A teenager scooped up first base and ran away. With no security guards in sight, the game was forfeited to the Yankees, 9-0. Opening day stars including Dick Bosman, Paul Casanova, Tim Cullen, the future World Series champion Mike Epstein, Kurt Flood, Joe Foy, Toby Harrah, who was excelled with the Rangers for years after this one, the great Frank Howard, and Elliot Maddox. Now, he finished 6th, 5th in the association, 38.5 games out of first place with a 63 and 96 record. Only the Indians were worse at 60 and 102. Now, what was ironic this year, ladies and gentlemen, he didn't do too bad against most teams, but had a terrible record against their own division. He went 3-13 against Baltimore, 6-12 against Boston, but he went 11-7 against Cleveland, 4-14 against Detroit, 6-6 against Milwaukee, 11-7 against New York, and again 3-9 against Kansas City, and a terrible 2-10 against the White Sox. Now, big trades in a year, of course, was the Oakland A's deal when Epstein and Darrell Knowles were sent to the Athletics for Frank Fernandez, Don Minchner, Paul Lindblad, and cash. Incidentally, Minchner ended back with Oakland a couple of years later. Now, in the Major League Baseball draft, Stan Thomas was taken, as well as Mike Cubbage. Foy was released on July 16, while Jim French was released on September 22nd. Pitchers included Dick Bosman, Pete Bromberg, Jackie Brown, Casey Cox, Big Godlewski, Joe Grisenda, Gary Janicki, Darrell Knowles, Paul Lindblad, Denny McLean, Horatio Pena, Denny Riddleberger, Jim Schellenbach, and Mike Thompson. 5 catchers, Billings, Casanova, Fahey, French, and Stemoslasik. Infielders, Allen, Cullen, Epstein, Foy, Toby Hare, of course, Jimmy Mason, Don Mitchell, Dave Nielsen, Tom Ranglin, Lenny Randall, and Don Wirt. Outfielders, Larry Bittner, Jeff Burrows, the future MVP, Frankie Fernandez, Kurt Flood, the great Frank Howard, Elliot Maddox, Tommy McGraw, Richie Scheinelberm, Del Unser. And Williams as manager with his coaches Joe Camacho, Nellie Fox, Sid Hudson, Wayne Terwilliger, George Suski, and Al Zarilla. Now, batting, Casanova batted 203, 526. Mincher 1045, 291. Timmy Cullen 191, 226. Toby Hara 230, 222, and 22. Dave Nelson 533. Frank Howard, some good numbers, 26, 83, 279. 83 RBIs led the squad. Del Unser 941, 255. And Larry Bittner, the future Expo, 0 home runs, 257, 16 RBIs. In the other batters, Dick Billings 648, 246. Elliot Maddox 217. Bernie Allen 266. Lenny Randall 219. Tommy McGraw 213. Jeff Burrows 232. Joe Foy 234. Mike Epstein 247. Richie Scheinenblum 143. Jim French 146. Don Wirt, terrible, 2 for 40. .050. Kurt Flood batted 200 limited duty with 2 RBIs. Frankie Fernandez 100. Tom Ranglin 174. Jimmy Mason 333, and Stemoslasik and Fahey with 0 out of 0. Bosman went 12 and 16. Denny went 10 and 22 with a 428. 33 starts, only 103 strikeouts, terrible. Pete Broberg 5 and 9, and Mike Thompson 1 and 6. Now other pitchers: Casey Cox 5 and 7, Bill Godlewski 6 and 5, Jim Schellenbach 3 and 11, Jerry Janeski 1 and 5, Jackie Brown 3 and 4. Now Lindblad went 4 and 8. Riddleberger 1 and 1. Horatio Pena, not too bad of a season, 56 appearances, 1 and 2. But Joe Grisenda, 46 appearances, only a 192 ERA with 56 strikeouts. Darrell Knowles, two saves, a 352. But Lindblad led all players with six saves. And of course, the minor league teams: Denver Bears, Pittsfield Senators, Burlington Senators, Anderson Senators, which were both coached an A short season, Geneva Senators, Frank Gable and Whitey Kurowski for Burlington, Joe Klein for Pittsfield, and Denver, of course, Del Wilbur. So a very, and they were AAA champions, of course, so they had a good farm team. So not say a rotten season, but just, how much stress. They were lucky to win 63 games. They didn't play a full season. Their 3 games were not played at the end of the year. So, like I said, he couldn't move up and couldn't move down in the standings. So that's the story of the Ted Williams-led 1971 Washington Senators, the last year before they moved to Texas. If you like what we're doing here with our seasonal recaps about Major League Baseball in the 70s, let us know. Like, comment, subscribe, or share. Bye.